So, welcome to Wellbeing United WFC.
Welcome to the Friday Night Fan Forum on All for United WFC. Still with not John Foster MUSC. He is back, I promise. We haven't locked him up yet. See, there you go. We've given him some rights to be in the comments. So you're stuck with me for another week as host, which I'm sure if you listen very quietly, you can hear the tears across the country. So yeah, how's everybody doing? Connor, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm glad to be on this channel. Like I said to Nat yesterday, it's good to talk about anything other than the men's side of Manchester United right now because it is horrendous. So, yeah, glad to be back on here.
Brill, how you doing, Atanu?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Andy, and a new host on the show. So looking forward to it.
Careful, John will pull me. You'll get jealous if you start with that stuff. So go on. How's it going, Stu?
Yeah, good. Thanks again for having me on, Andy. I did watch you last week. You were pretty good, man. Pretty good. So I think Mr. Foster will be quietly biting his fingernails, desperate to get back.
Yeah.
He's got big shoes to fill, pal. Big shoes.
Right,
there'll be people higher up that'll be worried that Andy's coming for their jobs as host.
Yes.
Well, this is a peak, and let's get down to the trough. So let's see what's going to go on there. You're right, Tasha. Okay, so obviously we're in the middle of the international break at the minute. Well, we've just finished it, haven't we? It still kind of feels like we're in the middle of it because obviously with United not being involved this weekend because they're finishing the 2020 FA Women's World Cup, Women's FA Cup even. So we've got an extra week. So I suppose the first thing that we sort of all thought about really, and maybe that I thought I'd bring up initially, is just how amazing it is really that you can just start essentially just go into games and then suddenly it becomes like a massive hobby when you start hosting podcasts at 7:05 on a Friday night, and sort of how does that sort of happen, and maybe try and encourage people to sort of start that journey a little bit as fans. Because I mean me personally, we sort of joked about it then. I'm a bit strange. I mean, you might have already realised that anyway. But I'm a bit strange because generally I'm just a women's fan, so I never really had. John, don't you do that, you naughty boy? What are you doing there? Jeez, Louise, I didn't mean that. Right? Yes, someone needs to lock him back up again. Right. So yeah, what was I going to say? Right, here we go. Yeah. So obviously, I'm basically a women's fan. And I don't really follow the men's, and that's a bit strange because most people follow both. Either they came over from the men's side, or they have kind of a sort of a television kind of will watch both kind of situation. But for me, obviously, I've got involved by going to games home and away, and I just really love watching the football, the standard, and really the community of some really great people that we've met, and obviously not always has to be match going because obviously Atano, with you being based in India, so I might start with you, Atano, actually, because obviously you obviously don't have the ability to get the buzz that we do by going to the stadium, and you used to watch Man United men. How did you start watching the women?
Yeah, I think I always knew that there was a women's team, but I didn't know how to watch the games. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit and I was looking at where to watch when the women's league starts again. So I got to know that there is an app called FA Player, and I was like, okay, let's get on with it. And the first game that I watched was the West Ham versus United game, the 4-2 win in which Russo scored a brace. So yeah, I was hooked from that day, and I was like, I can't actually miss any games, and I didn't actually miss any games. There was this time when we were playing City in the Conti Cup, and it went to penalties, and it was like 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was barely keeping my eyes open, and we won the game, even though we got 2 points. But yeah, it was a great day, and yeah, I've never missed a game for the women's team till now.
And the FA player didn't put you off, which is amazing as well. So
Yeah.
that's great with the sort of sort of one guy and a camera situation that they had going on there. Obviously, you're Stu as well, quite relatively new again this season, aren't you? So what made you? I think you might be on the top right hand corner, but what made you start coming to the women's games?
Yeah, look, I've been supporting the club since I was 7. Which is quite a while ago, 1977 actually, to be precise, was my first game. And I've got my uncle actually to thank for that. He dragged me to watch Manchester United men's away, obviously, against Wolves, and I was absolutely captivated. I started playing football when I was 5, and to go to and watch a game was amazing. And my story really begins, and it's quite pertinent, this is that where I was growing up and my school that I went to, I was the only Manchester United fan in the whole school and one of very, very few in my kind of local community. And so when Christmas time came and I got my Manchester United shirts and we went back in the new year, everybody was in their Liverpool and their Wolves shirts at the time. And there was little old me with my Admiral Man United kit. Look it up. 1977, the Admiral kit. And my journey really started from there. And I followed them home and away, not so much now because of family, etc. But I've been season ticket holder for over 28 years, or I'm in my 28th year as a season ticket, and I just love everything about the club. And that's why I get a lot of stick over on the other channel, because I support Ollie, because I support the club, and I support everybody associated with it. Now, obviously, I was aware of the women's channel, but women's football took such a long time to grow and progress. Certainly where we live in Shropshire, I think in bigger towns and bigger cities, it grew a lot quicker. And it's only really since my involvement with All for United, this group of brilliant people, that I got to know Connor and John, etc., that I was enticed into going. And I thought,
persuaded.
Well, persuaded, enticed. And I kind of thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. What have I got? There's nothing to lose. The ticket was ridiculously cheap. It was something like £6. And I got in the car and I met John and the guys and, all you guys at Lee Sports Village, and I was stuck on my own. And do you know what? I had a brilliant time, because the camaraderie before the match, and you guys were waving at me during the match as well as watching the game, and the support that the girls got was something I didn't expect. And I kind of can't wait now to go away to Spurs with you guys on Sunday, so I can actually experience for the first time, because I should let you know, I have been to all home games this year in the league, not the Conti Cup, but in the league. But I've been shoved out in the south stand with my mate, who's a Chelsea fan, Kev. But we have a great time on our own, and we go at the end of the game and we go and join the Barmy Army. And and I'm absolutely, I'm enthralled by it. So I'm really looking forward to Sunday next week, jumping in with you guys and going to Spurs away and experiencing what it's like to be with you guys. So yeah, I thought it was pertinent to me tell you about my history with supporting the club, because it's, I see Manchester United as Manchester United, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's my little story.
That's fantastic. I think I think, to be honest, as much as I don't want to touch on the other side with people make it talk about the Glazers and all this kind of stuff. And it makes me laugh. It sounds like a Disney villain in a castle somewhere, the way people talk about it. I don't think they spend all day trying to work out how to screw over Man United. They're too busy doing that with Tampa in the NFL. But I think to be honest, we probably might touch on this, but I think actually United's more integrated with the women's team than a lot of other established clubs. I mean, you just got to look at Liverpool and the way they've mistreated their sort of women's team by being in the second tier and not supporting them with resources. So obviously you just tend to Connor as well a little bit. So I think so how did you really get pulled over then? I mean I've touched on it a little bit before, but you can just
It was as simple as, I mean, I obviously same as Stu. I joined All for United, the men's channel, last year. Now back then this channel didn't exist. It was All for United, was the women's content was on the men's channel, so I was aware of John and Natalie and people like Benny and Matt and people like that. But I'd never really taken that much of an interest in it. And then literally, like I said, one day in July, I just messaged John saying, how easy is it to get to a women's game? And it was like that, because I thought, you know what, next season, after COVID, I was like, I want to get to as many games as possible. So I was looking at under 8. I've been to, watch some of the 18s, under 18s. I've been to watch the under 23s. Obviously, I've go watch the men quite a lot. Now I'm home and away with the women's as well, because like Stu said, I'm not a fan of internationals. I'm not a women's football fan. I'm not an internationals fan. I'm a Manchester United fan. I don't really care, to be honest, about the rest of it. So, and I said the first thing I took away from that first game against Reading was I didn't see like 2 female teams. I just saw United versus Reading. And I think that's what's gripped me so much, is it's just another team, win, lose or draw, because I've had some weekends where the women's and the men's have won, and it's like, yep, great, brilliant. And I've had some weekends where we've lost in both. When I've been up to Old Trafford and lost 1-0 to Villa, and then the Sunday we got battered by Chelsea. So sometimes it's not, it doesn't always work, but I wouldn't change it, because like I said, it's still, and I agree with what Tash was saying there about, especially this side of the channel. I mean, look at, look at how many of us go to games. There's, at least 20, 30 of us all go down in a group. Look at how many of us went up to Durham as a group, organised all of that, and went up
to Durham.
Exactly. So I had to sleep Durham in there somewhere. I drove 6 hours. That's commitment. I've got to get that in somewhere. I'm going to get that in every single show for the rest of the year now.
That's true. I get in the fact that I was in Birmingham every single show the rest of the year as well. But go on.
Tell you what, Colin, that's the first I'd heard you drove 6 hours at Durham. I've never heard that before at all. Crikey.
Well, it was that much of a trek. I've got to get it in there somewhere. So, my story is just very simple. It literally was because of John and Natalie. I was hooked after the first game, and I thought, you know what, I'll try Leicester away. And yes, Tasha is right. Going to all the games. I'm not. Do you know what I said as well? I wasn't going to go Conti Cup for the City game. I'm going on. Because I'm looking at it going, I don't want to miss a game.
Well, this is it.
So that's the thing.
This is exactly what happens. I mean, the thing is, I'll go into a bit more in my story as well, but I think, like, as I'm going to compare it with the women's game, but I think it is the people, and it does, when you get the right kind of people and the right group of people, we have a shared interest, that are kind, nice people, and some of my closest mates I've now made through All for United Women, and supporting the club. It is really special, and to be honest, even before COVID, I might not show it on here, but I'm generally not that much of a confident person. Like, I have a history of anxiety. I've had issues in that regard, but like, you find yourself able to do anything if you're in the right atmosphere and the right ability. Like, if you said to me, like, even 12 months ago that I'd be like doing this, you'd be like, no, it'd just be like, what? No way. But like, you can bounce off people and stuff like that. And I'm tempted to even like bring in a bit of Skinner here and go, the energy that we create. Here you go. See the energy that you create. We can do that. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I lived in Warrington at the time when I first started going in first season, halfway through the first season, and that's a lot closer to the league. But I was on my own. I literally didn't know anybody. I just went on my own. I remember going into sort of Leeds Sports Village and just hearing this loud noise that was Nat just suddenly almost hit, like with the F1. If anyone's been to an F1 race, the car goes past, it feels like you've been hit in the face. That's how loud, we can be sometimes. And like, over a period of games, I just tentatively moved closer and closer to the noise, until the point where I think at the end of the first season, I was like half near them, kind of thing. But I only really spoke to, what was then the Barmy Army, on the Etihad game. So the first game that we went and played at the Etihad, and that was my first like experience of a men's stadium as well. So I remember like just silly things that I'm sure you guys would be used to, like getting searched and stuff. I was like, where am I going? What's going on here, and that kind of stuff. And it was great. And as you say, you can just get connected by it and sort of passionate about it. And then obviously from there, you start meeting more people. Obviously, I started doing All for United this year in May, and for me, it is a very like inclusive community. Now we might sort of touch on this a little bit later, but because I've got 2 men's fans here as well, so I don't want to upset anybody. But as an LGBT person, I'd never really felt fully at home with the men's. And I don't know if that was psychological or whatever. I'm not using it as a therapy session, I promise. But like it was just one of those where it didn't really fit. But for some reason, I can just enjoy the football, and I passionately got drawn in with the women. And I think Connor and others have spoken in the past about the way you connect with the players, and they do know who you are, and and you have that kind of, you can see them kick on when you do a chant. You can actually see them react to it. And this is because, and this is something that I noticed quite quickly, which is why I'm so passionate about us making noise. And luckily, the rest of the league is starting to follow. I mean, they're still not half as good as we are, but they're starting to follow a little bit with clubs and noise. And it's something that I've got very passionate about. And as you say, when you get really passionate about something, you will do things like I'm driving people down and people back to London. Without giving you exactly where I live, Rochdale is roughly about 280 miles away from Barnet. So you times that by 2, and that's my day on Sunday, and I can't bloody wait. Now, that's the thing, isn't it? And with All for United, we do arrange, when we can, make sure people can get to places, and some of us are looking at some of the Lionesses games as well. And it's just a great group, and you kind of sort of get a. I mean, I haven't got anything to compare it to, so maybe with Old Trafford, if you get with the right, I know you've got groups there, you probably get a lot of it as well. But for me, it's kind of like dovetailed with me coming out of my shell a little bit, and like feeling able to be myself on screen and off screen. God, that sounds prima donna.
I can answer that just very quickly, just off the bat. I know Atana wants to jump in, so I'll let him just jump in after me. But just quickly on what you were saying about Old Trafford, you can make a small community of yourself, but it's not going to be as known and as close, because, like, for example, me and there's about 10 of us now go to Old Trafford when we go to games. We're sat all over the place, and it's not like. Let's say Stu is sat, say it's South Stand. You can see them, and you can meet after the game. In Old Trafford, if you're Stretford Lower and the other guy's East Stand second tier, there's not a cat and mouse chance you're seeing them. And there's no way, like, you're trying to meet up after the game. You're waiting 30, 40 minutes for everyone to disperse and everything. So, yes, you can kind of have small little communities, but it's hard. It's harder unless you're all season. And I think that obviously season ticket holders, you've got a designated seat at Old Trafford, so you kind of make friends with the people around you, rather than communities like All for United bringing people together. So,
which is quite interesting, Connor, because our seat in the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, people change all the time. There's only one constant. Everyone around us is Jake tells me all the time when he goes, because my lad tends to monopolise our season ticket, and it's helped me because if I was to go to City at Old Trafford on Saturday, and then the women away on Sunday, my missus would just be in my ear. So it's helped me support the women's team a lot more, But that's the problem with, unfortunately, Old Trafford is where our seats are. They're all supposed to be season ticket holders, but it's different people all the time. So.
Go on, Atana. You've been waiting so patiently at the bottom.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, Connor was saying something that he couldn't stop watching, and I remember this time when England were playing and we were having a show simultaneously, and when Tooney scored, everybody jumped in, and I could see the excitement on Connor's face when Tooney scored, and after that we all had a very excited mood as well. So I think these are the moments where you actually get to live women's football at its best. And a very small thank you to Andy as well, because whenever he goes to games, he sends me a voice note that the match is about to begin and we are here, and we all are here, and we are going to sit here. And I was like, yes, if I'm in India, I can actually feel a part of the LSV crowd.
Just quickly on what you were saying there about, like I said earlier, I don't care for England at all. Like, all my mates would tell you what a buzzkill I was in the Euros for the men's earlier in the summer. I don't. It's an old school United thing. I say to a lot of people, stand up if you hate United, going around, Old Trafford when England were playing there and all this, rubbish they were coming out with and everything that. Anyway, so it's an old school United thing. I just don't like international football, but like you said there, it almost turned into an L2 watch long, didn't it? I remember that fans forum we were on, and I just had it on, and I was so happy for her when she scored. But that's what it is. I wouldn't get that with like if Rashford or somebody that I scored for the men's, in England. I couldn't care less, to be honest.
But yeah, what obviously me on to, I think your topic next, Connor. But I think one of the things might be interesting as well, because you mentioned about the women's game, Stu, as well. It was banned by the FA in 1921. That was when it was banned, and before that, you had actually quite large crowds. Obviously, after the First World War, when obviously a lot of the men were away fighting, and it was actually banned after a 15-minute meeting that the FA had, when they agreed that football was not a game for ladies. That was literally the minuted meeting, and I've seen it in London when I went to one of these exhibitions things at the British Library. And it only was unbanned, for want of a better word, in 1971. So if you think about the growth of the game in the men's and how things went from, people having to supplement their jobs as male players, and obviously how, you think about the growth that's now happening with the women's game, it's good to see, but obviously it's quite disjointed, because you give anybody a 50-year head start, then they're gonna develop it something interesting. But I've noticed this year that it's got definitely a lot bigger and a lot more active on Twitter, and I think we're going to maybe look at the other side of that with Connor now.
Yeah, you brought me in like a reporter then. Are you sure you haven't done this before? That was a beautiful. I'm going to nick that segue you did there into my topic. That was brilliant. Anyway, and yeah, I'm just bringing up comments as we go. Yeah, it was. It's like I just said, I don't really care for internationals, but I was really happy for her. Yeah, so my kind of topic in it. I don't really know how. There's no nice way of putting this. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up this week is because, like I said earlier, as a United fan, this week, especially just from the men's side, has been quite possibly the most negative, toxic week I've ever seen. As a United fan, the abuse the players were getting. You can criticise the player. We lost 5-0 at home to Liverpool. That deserves to be criticised. I was really annoyed, Sunday night, and still was on Monday. But the level of abuse I've seen this week, the level of criticism I've seen at the match, I mean, it literally is like Ollie is sat on a ball of flames right now with the pressure that he's under. So my kind of topic to bring across. Now, we spoke on Nat's show yesterday about the positives of the kind of the broadcast deals with Sky and BBC. And I know we've covered this a lot, but that's good in terms of players will have more of the spotlight's on them more. So across Europe and America and Australia, people are going to see them more and be more aware of, say, younger players coming up. The flip side of that, and I say this a lot, that everyone I think at the moment, I think we'd all agree, wants the women's game to grow, get more money into it, get more fans in stadiums and things like that. And I said this on a show a few weeks ago. The only way the women's game is going to grow is if men's fans come across, because everyone who watches women's football now are women's football fans. And then you've got a few people like me and Stu and John, Nat, that have come across from the men's. Now, with that is going to come criticism, because the spotlight is on players more. It's the reason I bring this up is, like I said, because of the week that United have had, and also because the spotlight is on players more. You're seeing this a lot more with Sky. I mean, I don't really read a lot of the comments anyway on tweets, but if you watch, let's say Sky Sports Ref Watch, for example, just look at the replies. The criticism have gone through the roof of the WSL. I don't know whether this is because I'm more involved this year. I'm noticing it more. But I don't remember seeing much of this when it was like on the FA Player or MUTV or whatever it was. Now it seems to be on Sky and BBC. Everyone just wants to like have their opinion and knock it almost. Now, my kind of question to you three, anyone can kind of jump on this first, is do you think the players, the media, fans, managers, coaches, whatever, are ready for this? Because it is going to happen in the next, 5-10 years. It will get to a point where LSV is going to be packed. Millions will be watching regularly on TV. Do you reckon they're ready for this level of criticism? Because it's going to come across. I don't think it's I don't think it's a good thing. But do you think they're ready? And how do you even stop something like that?
Yeah, I'll take this. In answer to your question, no, I don't think they're ready for it. Because some of the men and the men's teams, they're not ready for it. They're not prepared for it. They come off social media when they get too much abuse, and these are hardened professionals. But you're always going to get it. Now, you would hope that there would be a different type of fan that goes to the women's game. you'll never probably get the hardcore football fan that you see at Old Trafford or Leeds or any other club across the country and across the globe. You won't see the ultras. There'll never be a female ultra, so to speak, that you get at PSG, Marseille, Lazio, AC Milan. But what you will get is children. You'll get too much Twitter children who think they understand what football's about, and they don't. They don't understand it in the men's game, and they don't get it in the women's game. And you can criticise a footballer as much as you like. That's their job. They're there to be criticised and shot down, and they are going to have to deal with it. But for me, it's how you criticise them. Do you do it constructively, or you do it like a 12-year-old with a dictionary and a thesaurus up on your laptop ready to go to structure a sentence properly? Because anyone who has got a brain and who is sensible won't criticise a player with any kind of profanity or any type of ridicule. But if you are a football fan like us, you're entitled to criticise a player, but make sure there's some merit attached to it. And that's the difference that I see. A lot of fans can't criticise it because they don't understand the game. They claim to understand it, but let me tell you, football is a lot different from turning on your PS5 and playing FIFA 22. The actual game itself is a lot more complicated, actually, and very, very simple. It's up to the players to complicate the game or simplify the game. And because these fans don't get it and they don't understand it, and they're not actually looking at the game of football, and they might see a simple mistake, which any player can do, by the way, at any level. It doesn't matter whether you're somebody who enjoys five-a-side on a Monday evening or you're a professional footballer playing for your country. People are prone to making mistakes. And the modern day fan can't accept that. They don't get it. Well, it doesn't happen on FIFA. It doesn't happen on Pro Direct Soccer. It doesn't happen on this. It doesn't happen on that. When I do it on a Friday night at five-a-side, I'm ace, and all this kind of stuff. Put yourself out of that environment, put yourself into a professional environment, a more difficult environment, and it's a completely different kettle of fish. And that is the issue. And the issue will always be, until social media can get a handle on the types of people that are allowing to spurt this nonsense, be it from a racial side, an LBGT side, Andy, which forgive me, I didn't know until you said.
That's fine. It's fine.
No, I didn't until you said. Not that it matters, because it doesn't, but I was just saying I didn't. But all I'm saying is, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram need to get a hold of people who've got no knowledge of what it's like. And I'll finish off with one other thing, because I babbled on here. I'm sorry, but I'll finish off with one other thing. And I mentioned this on Awful United the other day. I was asked a question about what we do with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the minute. I don't want to turn it into men's channel, but I actually want to humanise it, because I think it's important that you actually put a human touch to it. And I made a point that these players are going into training every day in, day out, and they're looking at a man deteriorate in front of their eyes. He's wilting, a grown man wilting in front of their eyes, and they're doing nothing to stop it. And because they're doing nothing to stop it, it doesn't stop your Twitter coaches, it doesn't stop your Facebook coaches, or any other so-called fan who thinks to know anything about the game from attacking a human being. And this guy's got to go home to his family, and he's got feelings just like you, me, and everyone else in this podcast tonight. We've all got feelings, but these idiots who are stuck behind the keyboard don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't have the mental capacity to grasp what they're doing once they've pressed send. So apologies, I've gone on a bit, but I just thought it was something to mention.
No, it's a good point, and obviously we notice this point here as well. Women have to be twice as good and will only be credited by half than the average male player. Now, obviously, I sort of want to say with an all-male panel, it's hard to sort of push on that, but I think, as far as we can understand it, I think that's very accurate. I think that, linking to what what sort of we were saying about the development of the game, I think we will get to full stadiums and we will develop, but there will be like a fork in the road when it comes to some of these leagues, whether it be the A-League Women, the NWSL, or the WSL itself, where it'll get to a point where, do we want to grow the game, or actually are people actively trying to keep it as a niche thing for quote unquote families, end quote, which and I think probably the optimum is somewhere in the middle. And I think maybe one of the things that might make it more difficult for the female players, the women's team players, is that they're not as disconnected from the fan base. So if the fan base did turn or suddenly did start giving abuse, they're not in like an ivory tower on 200 grand a week like the men might be. But you could also say, in a flip side, that maybe people feel okay, even if it's not okay, to abuse the men players because they think they're earning millions. I haven't got a Bentley. This is kind of what they're signed up for, and maybe that's feeding that. So maybe, a fan base that's more aware that these people are, again, quote unquote, real normal players or normal people, more relatable. You might maybe not get as much of a problem in that regard. But certainly on Twitter, there's been a move where, because it's like anything, like Twitter's all about, algorithms and causing, clicks, and conflict and stuff like that. But I think the thing is as well, it's like, I've criticized players, but I've criticized players from this player plays in this position. I think this player should be in that position because of this, not this person's a bleep, 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 or this, I don't like this person because of the way they look, or, none of that. It's all factual stuff, and that's fine. And you sometimes get a counterpoint of people. I'm going on one of my little rants here now. You get sort of the counterpoint of people who are then like, you shouldn't say anything. Everyone should just get a clap. You should lose 10-0 and say nothing and give everybody a hug. And that's patronizing to our players. And I think that's not what our players deserve. And I think even, I hate quoting her as a good example, but it's something I could think of. Even Steph Horton said at one point as England captain that there's nothing worse knowing you played terribly and then then they come over to the fans. The fans are like, you did great. Wasn't that brilliant? Because like she knows she didn't do great. And it almost makes it even worse. So I think once we can sort of get to a point where it is all technical and, just like a manager would, I'm sure when Ollie got them back in the, in the dressing rooms, he probably did tear into them, but he didn't probably say, ex-player, you're a horrible person. He would have said, why didn't you defend this? Why didn't you do that? It would have been specific football things. So I'm hopeful that we will grow the game. I think that we are going to be able to grow it really well in the UK because I think we've gotten to get with the coverage. And I think hopefully on Twitter, it's kind of like up to us and people that are passionate about the women's game to keep it the way, to keep the culture, let the culture develop in the way it should develop and not make it a closed shop as well.
I think you're right there, Andy. What I would say is, and sorry, Atano, I'll let I think it's up to the players themselves, the female players themselves, to forge their own path. I don't think they should bother what the men's supporters think about them, because at the end of the day, fans are fans and they'll go and support who they want. So if they're not interested in women's football, they won't go to women's football. And so the women have got to concentrate on their own product, their own game. They've got to look at themselves on a daily basis, and they're the only ones that can improve. Male advocacy won't help them improve as players, and it won't help the product improve. It's got to be down to them. And I'm not saying it should all be female advocacy, because it should be both. It should be men and women that advocate the female game. It's the same in tennis. Tennis is female tennis players are now just about being recognised, aren't they, in terms of prize money to what the men are doing. So there is a comparability there where women have just got to get on with it. The female tennis players have always just got on with it. They might have had a whinge and a moan, out the spotlight, but they still get on with it and they perform week in and week out. That's what our girls do. Our players do that. And I just want them to forge their own path and not worry about what the men think of them.
Yeah, and I bring Atano in there, but I just want to add as well to that because see, this is a blabbering hour. We're going to do well to keep this into 60 minutes, aren't we? But but basically, I think another thing about the whole situation as well is that it's sort of two sides of it from a guy's perspective. The amount of people that when I was saying I'm really enjoying going to women's football, and even colleagues in my previous job would go, and you would almost be like shamed a little bit for being a guy who likes women's football. And I think that also needs to be called out and stopped because, you can like women's football and you can not like men's football. You can really like men's football and not like women's football. You can not like anything to do with football. It's completely fine. And I definitely saw, it took me a while to be confident. And it's quite easy to deal with them because they go, and you just go, yeah. Because, at the end of the day, but there was an element of that you had to sort of move through as a guy. But I think also as well, and I will bring you in time now, but I think that, there is obviously this country isn't equal. I mean, there is obviously sexism, and you can see that in relation to the way women's sport is dealt with. And unfortunately, they are going to get a pushback from certain knuckle dragging dinosaurs in there that are going to go, football's for men, kind of situation. I think that's how they speak, basically. And and that is going to be something that obviously the male players won't have that problem. I think, but I think anyone who's an ally or direct to them, we're all passionate about the game, and I think it definitely will grow. So Atanu, what time is it in India at this point? We'll keep you awake. What's your next topic?
Yeah, I mean, just some things that I wanted to say. I see these with respect to the criticism and abuse. I see sometimes that fans do have an opinion. I'm fine with it, but they actually tag the player on Twitter and they say, "Are you an idiot? Why didn't you pass there?" I mean, you can form the sentence a little bit more respectfully. Why are you calling the player an idiot? So I think first of all, tagging the player and criticizing them. Of course, they know they shouldn't. They should have made the pass better. But you tagging them and you calling them an idiot won't make it, won't help them improve. And I think that's something that we fans have to realize. And I see a lot of abuse as well if, for example, the men's team actually promoted the women's games when I think it was the Manchester Derby, when the men's team also tweeted out something about the women's team. And there were a lot of comments like, who cares, and they should go back into the kitchens. And I don't really like it, and I do try to call those accounts out, but at the same time it is heartbreaking because at the end of the day, women's team are also a part of the Manchester United Football Club, and fans think the men's team is the only football club that exists, and that's something that needs to change. And I think that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, I was just sorry, Andy. I was just looking at this comment here that Rian's just dropped in about Stan. I think there was people that took it over the top with Stanway, but she had, and I think this is where it goes back to what we've all kind of said. Criticism is right if you do it in the right way. Just going at somebody for the sake of going at somebody is wrong, and not just in football, in any sport or in any environment anyway. But and I always say this on the men's channel, constructive criticism is fine. The main difference is the men don't really care what people say online. They probably don't look at it. Maybe some players have a look at, but it's all dealt with by their PR teams and things like that. The female players look at their social media. They interact with fans. You come over after the game, they will interact with you a bit more. So you've got to be a bit more careful with what you wouldn't want to say it to anyone anyway. I don't get some of the, like that Stanway red card that you're referring to was bad. It annoyed us all as fans, especially as United fans. But I'm not there after the game going, right, I know what I need to do. Right, where's her Twitter? Like, it's done. What happens in the 90 minutes, that's it. It's done. And it's like we've all kind of said, the best one I can bring up example-wise was the Chelsea game, and Hannah Blundell made 2 mistakes in that game that led to goals. And I said on the reaction afterwards, I'm not going to bring it up because nothing we can do and say is going to make her think or feel any worse than she probably already does. Players don't mean to make mistakes. We get annoyed, but it's done. We move on to the next game. And I think that's where people just have to just rein it in a little bit, criticize players. Me and Andy disagree on certain players in the team. Me and Stu disagree on things in the men's team. it happens. But as long as you've got points to back up what you're saying, then, just be constructive and just, be nice to people. There we go. Andy, take it away.
Yeah, but it'd be with nicer people. It'd be like tumbleweed everywhere, wouldn't it? No, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even from afar, I've seen the sort of Ollie out watch parties that's been going on Twitter Spaces.
I'm not kidding, right? I've got an Arsenal fan tweeting me now, telling me that I'm not a real fan because I said I want us to win the game on Saturday. Like these are the types of people that Stuart's referring. I've literally got an Arsenal fan telling me I'm not a real fan because I want our team to win. What's that about? There we are.
Yeah, and that'll be from Johnny589694 with a bulldog avatar, maybe, who actually lives in his mother's basement and couldn't put London on a map. So there you go. But yeah, so obviously we've been talking about the players, and obviously, I think, and obviously, as you say, we do talk about them in a positive and a negative way, but it's always hopefully fair and balanced. Atanu, what's your topic?
Yeah, I think we all know that the Euros draw was yesterday. I think, yes, it was yesterday. And we saw England get into a group with Norway, Northern Ireland, and I think the fourth team was Austria. Yeah. So just from a United fans' point of view, I really do wish that all of our United players who can represent the England team get selected for the Euros because it will be a wonderful opportunity for them to, play in the Euros, which is considered to be one of the best tournaments for women's football and the men's football as well. So I really do hope that.
Sorry.
FIFA 2 years, I don't really know what's going to happen. But I think I would like to see Serena Wingman. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name right.
You haven't seen me pronounce it yet.
But I'd love to see her select Aoife Mannion and Hannah Blundell before for the future Women's World Cup qualifier games, because I think I usually don't like to call it out, but I think Blundell is a much better fullback than Demi Stokes, and I don't really think that Demi Stokes did a good job in the game in the second last game that she played. I had really wanted to see Hannah Blundell. Demi Stokes is a good player. If please don't come after me, City fans, if something happens. But I think Blundell deserves to be in there, and I know that the centre back competition is very good in the Lionesses squad. But I'd love to see Aoife Mannion as well in there. Millie Turner, Katie Zellem, Lucy Staniforth, everyone who can represent the England team. I'd love to see every player who can represent their respective countries in the Euros. I know Connor might be like, okay, this is not United playing, but yeah, I'd love to see them in the European Championship.
I was going to jump on it first because my answer is going to be very brief. I don't want a single United player going to any games. Keep them wrapped up and keep them training with marks. No, in all seriousness, it is good when United players get selected. There's obviously a few in the England squad now with Toon, Staniforth, Mary Earps. Zellem got picked, Russo got picked. So I think that's 5 goals that you're looking at that are getting picked, and that's not even mentioning Mannion, Blundell, and you're looking at other countries of Spain and Borisa and Maria, and pretty much our whole squad is getting selected, which is nice to see. Like I said, I don't think all of them are. I'm just that threw me off. But yeah, just like you said there, I think if you're fans of that, then yes, obviously it's hard for me to talk about because I'm not an international fan. But it is always good. I can respect, as a player, to be called up for your country is a big moment, and obviously to play in these big tournaments is what you all kind of dream of, to wear your national shirt at a national tournament. So it would be nice to see. But I don't think Mannion would be close. I think Hannah's probably the one. If you were going to put an outsider's bet on something, you'd probably go with Hannah.
And this is it. I mean, just saw Tasha's comment there, and it's like I saw it on Twitter yesterday as well. And it's like, Jackie red and orange in LSV. I'm like, that's it. She's going to score at LSV finally, but in orange. So I really hope that
I do hope that next year we do have an orange kit and she signs a new contract.
Oh, I think we need a petition, to be honest. I think we definitely need a third kit or an away kit that's orange, because I think that's it. It's one of those now. I mean, as the comment there, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, I obviously only really been in it the last few years. I sort of fell into the Lionesses again through Man United Women. There was a weird thing where for a long time, Lionesses was basically City and Friends. I mean, I've joked before that, I think Phil Neville just lost everybody's telephone numbers that were United players, and maybe that's why it never happened. And I think with Serena, we've got, she's obviously looking at it as a brand new broom. Mary's getting a chance, which is fantastic for her. I mean, she's another player who's coming for a lot of criticism. And if you actually look at her stats, she more than sort of keeps her own with the sort of top 3 keepers, which should get her in the squad by definition. If you're in the top 3 keepers in England, you should really be in the top 3, being the top 3 keepers in the squad. And I think, I think it's one of them with the Lionesses. I think that it's great to see them having a chance, but I am with Connor to an extent. I am holding my breath sometimes because we haven't got a big squad, but that's United's fault, not England's squad, not England's fault. And I'm going to be holding my breath until we get some additional players in January, hopefully, or next season. But yeah, what's your view on this, Stu?
I'm not really sure where I start on this one.
Start of a good story.
Yeah, so look, my view on international football, certainly for the women's side, is, and some of the results that I've just seen recently, where there's been almost cricket scores, it kind of reminds me of where international football was back in the 80s for the men's. Where we would go away and we beat Turkey 8-0 and we beat San Marino, that's all kind of evolved and that's changed. Teams are far better, they're far more quick training, etc. And I just feel at the minute that the women's international scene is in that stage of the 80s where you are going and you're going to see some big scores. So I don't know enough about the international scene. In terms of watching Manchester United players, I have to tell you, I don't really do that with the men's side either. It just doesn't really appeal to me. I'll watch a tournament because I think tournament football is absolutely brilliant. And I did watch us come third, am I going to say 2017 in Canada in the World Cup? Is that right? Am I right in saying that? I followed us.
Was it 15?
Yeah. 15, but yeah, was wrong.
Yeah, sorry. I did follow us then because you do follow. Well, you should follow any team that's in kind of an international European tournament. But I couldn't tell you how Victor Lindelof played for Sweden in the last international break. And if somebody asked me how he plays in the upcoming international break, I wouldn't be able to tell you because I'm just not interested. And so I can see the excitement. But I'm going to get absolutely maimed here. I know I'm going to get absolutely battered and destroyed. And I don't mean anything by this. I just don't think that women's football is equipped to have a really good, strong European Championships at the moment with what I've seen. Because didn't we just beat Northern Ireland 9-0 or something like that? Latvia.
The one thing I will say on the back of what you just said, Stu, me, Nat, and Catherine did a show on this idea of the 2 World Cups, and Catherine made a really good point. It was last Thursday, I think this show was, or last Wednesday. And she spoke about this is where the money from some of these tournaments needs to go into the confederations, like the African Confederation, into the
South American.
Right. Start strengthening. This is where I was saying, start building from the ground up, start really strengthening some of these other nations. And then you can start having, because I said last week that there's nothing better than a European or a national tournament. Because like I said, I keep repeating, I don't particularly care for England that much. There's nothing better than seeing an underdog do well. And at the moment, you've kind of got, and I think Natalie highlighted this very well, you've got the same almost 5 or 6 teams at the top of the women's game. Then there's a big drop to the rest. That's
kind of what I'm getting at.
You need to build those teams up. And then it all comes back to what we were saying at the start about exposure. The more competitive the international women's is, the better, the more eyes are going to be on it, more fans will go, because then it's more, and I say this all the time, people don't like to say this, but football is an entertainment business now. That's what it is. So you want to be entertained when you go to a game. And if you're going to a game going, well, we're going to beat these 15-0, like, there's not really too much. And I don't know whether, Andy, you want to if you watch it a bit more, if you want to jump on the back of what Vicky's saying there.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting a bit stronger, but I completely agree with what you're saying in relation to when we go out to Latvia and we absolutely spank them or whatever. It's not fair on them as much as it's not fair on us. I mean, part of the fun of football is jeopardy. We could lose, we could win. They could, we could draw. There's no jeopardy. Then it's like playing FIFA, using your analogy, on amateur, and you might enjoy winning the cup 10-0 every game, but eventually you up the difficulty because that's just boring and not a challenge. But yeah, linking it more what obviously Stu's going to say, I think, I think there needs to be a bit more of as you say, like almost like not a qualifier before a qualifier, but a bit more of a sort of like getting a standard up a little bit before the tournament. But there is, I mean, Holland, obviously with Jackie, Van der Donk, Miedemar, Martins who plays for Barcelona, Germany, Italy, I think did really well recently. Sweden is getting there. Norway, we already know 2 players that are very good for Norway, So I think it is starting to branch out. But if just think of the days, you said the 1980s, we're now in 2021. That's 41 years ago. The game was banned for 50 years. So if you think we're kind of on track, we're kind of on track. But yeah.
And the thing is, and you make a really valid point, actually, Andy, and so does Connor. And the fact is that you don't actually learn anything if you beat Latvia 10-0. You get caps for players. You get certain players like Tooney. She got a hat trick, didn't she? Takes on the match ball, etc. That's great from a personal end. You actually, if you were to analyse that game of football, nobody learnt anything. And the Latvian girls, all right, they knew they were going to get beat, but 10-0, what have they learnt? They've just had a right spanking. So I think it needs looking at. I don't know how it does get looked at. I don't know, as you quite rightly say, Andy, maybe you should have a two-tier qualification kind of program running so that these teams, Latvia, can play a team at their level and they can learn about the game. Because when we play a team like Latvia, right, and then we go into a group that includes Spain, as well as somebody else that's half decent like Holland, we're not prepared. As a group of players, we're not prepared to play that level of football because we've qualified. England has the men's team, we get it right, has exactly the same issue. Albania. Obviously we're going to win that group, and it's always the same when we then get to the finals themselves, when you're going up against Argentina, Mexico, Bolivia, well-drilled teams from across the globe. We're not prepared for any of that, hence we never do so well. I know we have done just recently, but that we've had easier groups and pathways, and I think this will be a big problem. So I just think that I'm not saying I'm right. It's just an opinion that I've got, and me, I'll always share it.
I mean, that's the best thing about it, isn't it? We've all got different opinions and stuff, and I think to be honest, this is what worries me, because in the age of I'm going to really almost semi-sway, and not literally, John, don't worry, but in the age of the Super League that nearly happened last year, the worrying thing that could happen is that there's some people that are a bit, not really looking at it in the right way. Where I go, okay, well, we'll lock away the top 10 international teams, and we'll have them almost like a Six Nations in the rugby, where they just play, and then everything else falls off a cliff. And none of us are advocating that either. I think it has to be some joined up thinking, and and flogging the dead horse of 55 World Cups every 10 minutes, which is what a lot of the Americans are trying to look at. Is also the wrong idea as well, because I think as we discussed, the passion is with the club game, and we are blessed in Europe with history, proper history, which feeds rivalry and feeds like an element of prestige. Some of these other areas, like in America, you can, with a stroke of a pen, you can move a team from the West Coast to the East Coast. That's always going to make it very, very difficult. And yeah, good point, Tash, as well. Honor in Spain. I mean, I love Honor. I think I should have mentioned here as well. I mean, Spain is another great, league going places, and unfortunately, so are Barcelona. But hopefully, Honor won't join.
I was going to say I don't like seeing Barcelona and Honor in the same sentence. Can we keep those two apart?
yeah, for the next 10 years, please. No, yeah, completely. All right, but yeah, as I say, we talk about learning off people. We all come with different backgrounds and stuff as well, and I always learn a heck of a lot technically from Stu. So, you've got my focus now. What's your topic?
Well, I just again, this is from my limited knowledge of the female game and what I've seen when I've gone to LSV. I just wanted to talk about spatial awareness, and I just want to get the panel's view about how they feel that sometimes certain players, and I'm not going to say any players' names, I'm going to use the phrase certain players, sometimes use the ball like a hand grenade. And where there's times in games, certainly against Manchester City and certainly against Chelsea, where we could have had better possession if players had thought a little bit more. So when they've taken the ball to feet, they've had a quick look over their shoulder, either left or right, just to see who's in the vicinity, and then understand, can they hold the ball, take a slight turn, and then lay it off. And I've just felt that a couple of the games, in fact, all the games, if I'm being honest, Reading, City and Chelsea, we haven't had that, what I call calmness in any part of the field. I'm not just talking about in the middle of the park. I'm not talking about up front. I'm talking about in any part of the field, because one of the best ways of understanding how a match is evolving is by sight and by thought. And when you receive the ball, don't automatically move it on. Think about what you're going to do with it, get hold of it, and then it enables you to then push your team forward. So it's just something I've noticed, and I was wondering, I was going to ask you all whether it's something you guys have noticed, whether you think that's something that needs to be addressed by Skinner, or do you think we're okay and we should just continue as we are?
I can. Or do you want? Should we let Atanu go?
I was going to say, come on, let's see how good that FA player is. Come on, what's your view?
Yeah, I think Stu is spot on that. We haven't been our best selves in the games against City and Chelsea, especially, and I think he's absolutely right when he says that we don't actually hold the ball and let the other players go forward. It's some hasty decisions, and we are afraid. It seems like we are afraid, and we just pass the ball. The minute we get the ball, we pass it. There's no hold up play, and I think this is something that Skinner is trying to work upon. I mean, it's only been a few games, and the season is quite long. Not as long as the men's leagues, but at the same time, we do have a lot of games left. So, yeah, this is something that we have to work upon, and I think. When we have, I always go back to this point that when we do have a proper CDM in the midfield, it helps us during attack when the midfield drops into the defense and the fullbacks can play as wing backs, and that's something that United do. That the quality of fullbacks in our team is quite good. So I think we should be using that, and hopefully Skinner implements this into the gameplay.
I was just going to jump in because I'm going to surprise you here, and this might sound devil's advocate, controversial, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that's our problem, and I've got stats to back me up here. We are second.
Careful! It's a bit late in India.
We are actually second best in the league at ball retention and ball, keeping hold of the ball in the midfield. Now we are actually first, believe it or not, at progressive passes, and that you look at that and go, progressive passes, people don't know, very simply is passes in it cannot be in your defensive 40% of the pitch, and it has to be completed. So I'm not talking about long balls and it's just an incomplete pass. It has to be completed. Now you'd think then, well, why are we not scoring as many goals? Our shots on target percentage is awful. It's absolutely horrendous, and our distance, from
Connor,
shooting.
Sorry to cut you off, but you do remember that Leicester game? There were a lot of shots, around 26, 27 shots.
Yeah, and I think that has kind of ruined a little bit. But I'm just making the point that I actually think we keep hold of the ball well, but it's so slow. I feel like we get the... And I repeated this after the City game. I noticed it after Leicester. I said it after Birmingham. We get the ball, and instead of switching the play like normal teams do from fullback to fullback, we go through the two centre-backs. And in the midfield, You went, sorry, Stu, I will let you.
No,
Go on.
Atana is bang on. When we don't have, well, we do. Hayley Ladd is the 6, but she's not playing. We don't have somebody who drops into the back 3, which allows the fullbacks to go on. We've got Zellum, Jackie, Bo Rees, obviously, is not really playing. They're all 8s. They're all, looking forward and trying to. They're all box-to-box midfielders, I feel. I know Jackie kind of plays a little bit. She is probably the more defensive out of them. But I see them all as 8s because they're progressive passing and the way they keep hold of the ball as well. But none of them are dropping into that back 3. And that's why we're getting exposed against the bigger teams, because you're leaving Mannion and Maria on their own. And you've got Honor and Hannah so high. So we need that midfield cover. And that is where I agree with everyone's argument that Ladd should be in that middle.
So that's where spatial awareness comes into it in thought process. You're absolutely right about stats. The stats will tell you we retain the ball, but it's what we do with the ball. It's and that's what I've noticed. I've noticed we're very, very slow with it, but we're not methodical with it, and that's the difference. And that's why I'm not a stat man, Connor, as you well know. You're absolutely right. We probably are up here, but it's all right being up here with ball retention. But if you're not doing anything with it because you're not sure what's happening in and around you, and you're absolutely right about Ladd needs to be in there to be that foil for Maria and Iofi, or however you pronounce it. Mannion. I'm just going to say Mannion. I'm going to say Mannion because I don't know.
Ether. That's it. Ether Mannion.
Ether. But we don't look. We never, nobody's ever got the head on the swivel. And it's really important that when the ball's coming into you, you're looking around first. So you're noticing where the ball is. You're looking around. Great, I can move it straight with my left peg off to Blundell, or I can go straight across to Honor, or I can hold it and I can turn and I can run 3 yards and I can drop it off to Jackie. That's why what I'm talking about ball retention and spatial awareness. And that's what I've noticed we don't do. I've noticed we might get it, and it might be, as I said to you before, it's like a hand grenade, so it's moved on immediately. But it's what I would call a hopeful ball, rather than a ball that actually has got any merit to it. Or someone will get hold of it and they'll try and do something with it, but they won't go back. They won't receive it. They won't put it across. They won't receive it, and that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, I'll just come back on this. I know, Andy, you've got a theory on this, but I do agree in that sense. And believe it or not, I don't know the exact figure. I was looking at this earlier. It's something between four.
He's gone now. I told you, he's gone now.
I can't remember the exact number, but it's a crazy amount. The amount of times we go down Honor's side compared to Hannah's. Now, that is a problem because you've got the ball on Zellum's side. So Zellum, Honor, and Maria, I think, plays at the left of the three. And obviously, Honor switches from left to right anyway. But when you've got all of your play going down one side, you've got Galton and Hansen, or Galton, whoever, as inside forwards. You're not really going anywhere because you're relying on the width of the fullbacks. If your fullbacks aren't really high and wide, which they can't do because you haven't got a 6 dropping back, you're then relying on your inside forwards. And they get the ball and they're like, I've got 3 players on me here. You've got the right back, the centre back, and their defensive midfielder all marking you. You're almost like, well, where do I go? We need to start spreading it out a little bit. I'm fine with this system if that's where he wants to play, but you have to have a midfielder to create a back three. Otherwise, just go watch that Chelsea game and watch how many times Mannion and Maria were left as a 2 on their own. You're asking against Harder, Kirby and Sam Kerr. You're asking for trouble. What are you doing? So it's the one thing I'm going to spin a positive on it though. Obviously, Andy, I know you got a theory on it. The one positive is I don't agree in some sense that we panic with the ball. I think we're very confident on the ball. I think Zellum and Jackie are very good at keeping hold of it. And that's why I said ball retention. But now we need to try and find that next gear of doing something with it. We're very good at keeping hold of it and very good at kind of controlling it and going between the fullbacks and going between. Let's try and play forward a little bit quicker and move it, through the thirds.
Just before Andy comes in, I agree with that. Apart from Jackie, I think she's a little bit sorry. I know I haven't got my hard hat. I should have put my fucking hard hat on now.
Well, your harder hat. Sorry.
Yeah, because I'm in real trouble now. I know. I think Jackie actually she's a little bit loose with it. I think her first touch is a bit loose. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just think it's a bit loose occasionally. But you are right, Connor. Yeah, you are right. But now I'm in trouble. I'm going to go. I've got to get off the stream. I'm going to get shot.
No, that's fine. No, I mean, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to come up with a theory, and obviously, I've let you guys are the sort of technical bull guys, really, and can sort of get into it. But I have a theory, and I think it's probably quite accurate. And I think the problem is actually the difference in teams in the WSL. So, because I think the problem is that I believe with other leagues on the men's side, it's more consistent. So how do you really practice those tactics in relation to, passing the ball around, how much time you're going to have on the ball when it's going to vary so much between a Birmingham and a Chelsea? So if you look, and there's a big disparity. I think someone said that there's almost 4 leagues in one with the WSL. And I think one of the difficulties, I'm not sort of posing any solutions here, I'm just sort of saying it as a possible reason, is that there's such a difference between playing Chelsea and playing Birmingham. There's, in relation to how much time you're going to get, quality of tackles. Are you going to be able to miss? Are they going to be able to miss a tackle? Are you going to be able to take 1 player or 2 player or no players? Like, there's such a big difference in pace, in time you're going to have to think when the ball's going to hit you, what am I going to do with it? Because, we play Birmingham and then we play Chelsea, and it's like, and I'm not just picking on them, there's other examples as well. We play Leicester, we had a lot more belief and a lot more time, and we were peppering the goals a little bit. But, again, I mean, I'm looking at our sort of old fixtures here, after Leicester. So we played Leicester, Chelsea, didn't we? And then after Birmingham, we played Man City. That the point stands. There's quite big jumps along in your league. And
I think that's a valid point.
And I wonder how you're coaching against that. And obviously, it's the same for everyone. But I think maybe that's the issue.
What you actually raise is a really valid point. But Connor's going to laugh now. He's going to spend the next 30 seconds laughing because I'm going to come up with an old favourite of mine. Yeah, I'm coming up with an old favourite of mine, actually, Andy. And I mean this with the greatest respect because I talk about it in the men's game all the time. It's actually play intelligence, application and adaptation. That's why Connor's looking away.
Because I just knew that was coming.
You did, yeah. And it is.
Yeah, clip that off. We'll save it later.
Yeah, and if you were to sit yourself on that pitch, you are the one amongst your colleagues who can see what's happening. You're watching the game unfold around you, and it's actually up to you as an individual player to keep your standards at a level that will allow you to deal with the different types of players and space that you're talking about, Andy, because you're absolutely right. There are teams that will give you more space and teams that won't give you. And a good midfield player, whether you play as an 8 or whether you play as a 6, all right, John, sorry. And whether you play as an 8 or a 6. So if you're playing as a 6 for a minute, and Connor's absolutely right, and this is why I quite like what I've seen about Hayley Ladd. Hayley Ladd can be the one that can get you up the pitch a lot quicker. So she can be the one that can be saying to Zellum and Gronen, if he decides to play 3 in the middle, where I need you, because if I take the ball off Maria, I need you slightly diagonally 2-3 yards ahead of me so I can pop it off to you. And then I'm going to stay where I am, and Katie's got to move here. This is what football's all about, and this is where I talk about player intelligence, because it evolves and not every game's the same. And this is why with Man City, when I was talking about Hannah against Hemp, I could see exactly what was happening. And it took 45 minutes for Hannah, the coaching team, Skinner, to sort Hemp out. She destroyed us in the first time. She didn't in the second half. So you've got to be quicker in your decision making and your thought process when you're playing. Now, it's not as easy said than done, by the way. I'm not saying it is, because there are times where you come up and you're just coming up against better players. There's nothing you can do about it. You've got to hold your hands up and say I'm a better player. So what do I do? So we need somebody in our team at the minute as a disruptor. And I think Hayley Ladd could be that one. She could be the one that can disrupt. You don't need Zellum to do it, and you don't need Gronen to do it. Gronen, I haven't really seen her properly, but I understand she's a flair player, got great technical ability, and Zellum's a steady player. So when she gets the ball, she probably will use it better than Jackie. That's what I've seen. That's just out my own eyes. But I think in there, a lad will give us a lot more protection for Maria and Mannion. I'm going to go with Mannion. and will allow, as Connors says, will allow the fullbacks to drift up a little bit more, and we can use the ball better. And it's just, but it is all about up here, I'm afraid, knowing where you are at any given time, knowing where your segment of the pitch is. But Connor's hearing me talk about this all the time. That's why he was grinning.
Yeah, you are right. And the thing is, that second half against City, it changed. The fullbacks dropped off. Honor and Hannah both dropped off in the second half a little bit. We were, believe it or not, you can go and watch the game back if you don't believe me, if you really want to. But they dropped back and we were more attacking because you're not getting beat on the counter attack so much, so you can keep the ball better. So that's all I'd say, because we could have this conversation for hours about the midfield and better options and all this kind of thing.
Brilliant.
But it's weird, isn't it? We're having the same conversations in the men's team as we are in the women's. We need a 6. We need that number 6 in the middle that drops between the back two.
all red, all equal, isn't it? That's literally the same problem.
As long as the women don't play like the men do, then I'm all for it.
And to support Andy's statement, I think the international break after every 2-3 games is also a bit disheartening because it disrupts the form and momentum. So I think that's something that the committee or whatever the organization should look at.
Just to address, is it Marty? Is it MGIV19? Is that Marty? Yeah, I haven't seen Jackie play international. No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I can only talk about Jackie how I've seen, and I think at the start of the season you could be the biggest Jackie fan in the world, but she's not reached the heights, has she, that she's capable of? I'd be right in saying that, wouldn't I?
I think obviously Andy and Atana, you're better players, but I think there's a few players. I think I said this on a show that every player, when I first asked John or Natalie or yourself, Andy, who are the players to watch? All the players that were mentioned are not players that are doing well now. If that makes it, like Galton, Jackie, like they're not all, but that's a positive for me, because if you look at it, if they're not playing their full potential now, how good could they be later on in the season if they really start hitting their heights as well? There you go. Let's hype it up. We're going to win the league. No, we're not.
I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I have a hashtag like the player intelligence thing with Stu there, but I will push my theory a little bit. If you're learning how to run, right, and I buy you a treadmill, right, and I turn it on to 100, and I turn it on to sort of 10, 20%, and you're getting all right. Then next week I whack it to 80%. And you're like, oh my god, oh bloody hell. And then I drop it down to 30%, and then I go up again next week and take it up to 90%. You're going to struggle to learn the technique of running, and I do think that possibly might be there. I know that's a very simplistic analogy, but yeah, I'm just trying to rein ourselves in, because obviously we could go for hours on this, and that's great, and that links to what we started with the show, wasn't it? With the passion that we all have and generating for the women's team. But yeah, I mean, just obviously, as I say, look ahead. On Saturday we've got Ben and Matt with Saturday Night Live. Anyone who's ever heard a syllable out of Ben's mouth, he's one of the most funniest guys I've ever met. So it's always a good thing. Obviously, yeah, and obviously mentioned the Euros. And then on Sunday, we'll be on the road. So I will be going to Bristol. I keep saying it because I still don't believe it, really. But to watch with a few others, to watch Bristol Sheffield, which obviously has Fran Bentley, Tara Bourne, hopefully, an ex-res like Amy Palmer, and and others there as well. And I think, Connor, you're going Stourbridge?
Yeah, we're going Stourbridge versus, I think they're called Condon United or Condon Court away for Stourbridge. We're going to watch Carly Aldridge score a hat-trick. G Thacker's going to score a hat-trick. Andy Fisher's going to be on the pitch getting booked again. If he is watching, he knows what I'm on about. And yeah, hopefully go even further ahead at the top of the league. They're killing it at the minute.
This is it. And obviously, one of the players we do like to talk about, because she's absolutely brilliant and is really setting the world alight, and pretty much, to be honest, is first name on the team sheet for the Lionesses at the minute, which is Ella Toon, which is great to see for some of us that have seen the way she's developed. So we've got a Toonie special coming on Monday for your lucky people. But it's been great. Thanks for everyone. Obviously tonight, I think we've had a good show. Obviously, we'll do the usual. Connor, where do people want to find you to discuss all the things you were going on about?
I mean, if you really want to follow me, my things that I see, Atana who's already clipped me up. Like, there's a picture of me on Twitter already. I've just retweeted. Can't believe that. We're not even off air yet. But yeah, if you want to see that picture of me reacting to the internationals, that's my Twitter at. And like Stuart says as well, we want some fans from the women's game over on the men's channel as well. So we're trying to get some more people across onto the men's. So it literally is same brand, all for United. Go and check those guys out as well.
Atanu?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at @Atanu_74, or you can catch our YouTube channel, The United Star, if you want to, and subscribe to it.
Stu?
Yeah, you'll be able to, if you want to, listen to my dulcet tones and listen to my rubbish analogy. I will be on AFU Uncut on Sunday evening, and a couple of shows next week. And if I'm ever invited back on this channel, which I hope I am, I would imagine a couple of weeks on the Fans Forum. But yeah.
I will just jump on the back of that very quickly. Like I said, we want more people across on the All for United men's. You don't need to know anything about men's football. Uncut is just, we talk about football for 20, 25 minutes, and then it's just chaos. Everyone's had a drink, and it just turns into talk about what you want. So get across to that and tune in. It's brilliant.
And I'll be at Tottenham away next Sunday. So if any of you want to say hello or even abuse me, you're more than welcome.
Yes, so all the Dutch stands. Just remember what you just said there. But yes. And obviously myself, I've yet to get anything really professional. You can see my very imaginatively handled Twitter handle there. It won't take you 2 guesses to work out what the 3 letters were. For me to say something vaguely funny about United and also other stuff as well. So yeah, it's been good. I love doing these. It's been great having everybody on, and obviously look forward to the next one.